next panel on, and it's about RWA. I truly believe this is the year of RWA. It's not just a catchphrase. It's real-world assets, solving real-world use cases. BlackRock came out and said all things will be tokenized, gave that blessing to everybody who's on the outside world, and now here we are. So we are going to get into now the social impact of RWAs, and we have a powerhouse panel for you today. You're going to love this. We've got Stacy Warden, the CEO of the Algorand Foundation, Eric Piscini, CEO of Swirlds Labs, Sunny Liu, CEO of VeChain, Pankuri Bansal, Blockchain Advisor, LTO Network, and United Nations, moderated by Paolo Tasca, co-founder and chairman of DLT Science Foundation. Give it up for them, please.
Oh, you don't have a seat?
No.
Oh,
I need to grow up.
go over there. Go over there.
Okay.
Go over there.
No. There is no chair for me. No, it's okay. I prefer like that.
Wait,
Okay.
He's standing up.
All right, we're
Yes.
already 10 seconds late.
Do you want to sit in Eric's lap?
That's strange.
So we are in school. We are getting interviewed.
Take the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we got it.
it's a great
All right.
honor to be here. Thank you for the organizer for having me here in this amazing avenue with these amazing panelists. And they already been introduced. But we have Stacy Warden, right, from Algorand Foundation, Eric Piscini from Swirlds Labs, Sunny Liu from VeChain, and Pankuri Bansal from United Nations, basically. We're going to talk about the tokenization of real-world assets, right, and the social impact. This is a very interesting period for this, technology like blockchain to help the fractionalization and to increase the liquidity of illiquid assets. Although this is, as you may know, a process that started decades ago, especially in finance. The adoption of blockchain can help to bring, to the market those illiquid assets that are traded in a very opaque way, where there is a lot of overheads, there are a lot of frictions, and there are some estimates from the World Economic Forum, from the Boston Consulting Group, that this tokenization of real-world assets is going to be transformational. So some numbers say that basically by 2030 there will be 10% of the global GDP that will be tokenized, which is a huge amount, talking about trillions of dollars. There is an annual compound growth rate of this tokenization of about 19%. And by 2025, they say that there will be about 15 trillion of asset class being tokenized through this technology. But these are numbers rounded down because they forgot to include in these statistics commodities like gold, like silver, and other precious metals. They forgot to include the luxury goods. They forgot to include collectible. And they forgot to include fine arts. And fine arts on its own is about $2 trillion to be tokenizable. Apart from those that are in the museum, like this one or other museum, that are ready to be tokenized. So it's a huge market. So I'm going to start today with a general question for my panelists, which is about basically to share with you what they do in their companies in respect to the tokenization, and what they think the benefits are for blockchain, and why we should use blockchain, what benefit this technology can bring to the users in respect to this tokenization. Who want to start? You, Stacy?
Sure. So the idea of tokenization, I'm sure you're all familiar, is the idea that you can make a digital representation of an asset or part of an asset on chain. So I am the CEO of the Algorand Foundation. The Algorand is a layer 1 blockchain, highly performant, next generation blockchain. And we are very focused on real world assets. And I think we think that there are basically 4 main value propositions. One is that you bring liquidity to an asset that is currently illiquid. So if you think about fine art, to use your example, if you can tokenize fine art into a bunch of little pieces, then you can distribute the shares of that painting, say, to a lot of different people, and you bring liquidity to that market. The kind of other side of that coin is that you bring investment opportunities to people, normal households that are typically only available to what we call in the United States accredited investors. So for example, a company that is building an Algorand called Lofty AI, they tokenize rental properties. So you can have some of the income stream of a rental property for as little as a $50 investment. And rental income is not typically correlated with other investments. And so that kind of portfolio diversification is now available to households. The third piece of that, which is related to that example actually, is that in Web3, finance tends to be continuous. So again, in this example of Lofty AI, your piece of that rental income accrues to you daily, not monthly in the way that it would in traditional finance. And then fourth, last but not least, tokenization just wrings savings out of traditional finance. So if you think about a typical like structured vehicle like an SPV, and you think about a mortgage securitization vehicle, there's 30 to 40 basis points in there of calculation agents, paying agents, all that kind of stuff that can be done by smart contract in Web3. And you know, just to do the math for you, 30 or 40 basis points is $30,000 or $40,000 on $1 million home, right? Like that's real savings for households. So I think those are the big four that I would talk about.
Amazing. I think these are very important 4 points, especially the fact that you bring available to the markets assets that are uncorrelated to the traditional asset classes.
Now, the advantage I had, of course, was going first. They could have also given all the four of those examples.
I'm just going to agree with Stacy, and we can move on. My name is Eric Piscini. I'm the CEO of Swirls Labs. Swirls Labs is the team behind Hedera. Hedera is a layer 1 blockchain. So we've been working on tokenization, obviously, for the last, 5 years now. And in addition to what Stacy says, I think what's interesting to us is when you invest into real estate today, for example, what we do with REITs1, which is a company we support, typically in real estate, when you invest for a long time, and your investment is locked into a contract, and it's really hard to get out of that contract. The liquidity that Web3 provides gives us the opportunity as an investor to find another buyer for my asset. So if I buy $1,000 worth of a multifamily development, I can sell those $1,000 to another buyer on a marketplace, in the secondary market, which is impossible today when you talk about real estate. So that's an additional point. I think liquidity on the front end, which is what you mentioned, liquidity on the back end, which is also very important.
Time maturity transformation of long-term asset classes. Fantastic. Yeah. That's another very good point. What about you, Sunny Liu?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny Liu, the founder and the CEO of VeChain. Actually, we have been doing the real-world adoptions since 2017. We have been called like old dinosaurs in the crypto industries. Actually, last year, we released the third version of our white paper we call Web3 for Better. We have been specified the track for try to decentralize sustainability implementations. Because let's say those, for me, I totally agree, like tokenization for real world assets is the next trend. We wanted to try to, let's say, bring focus on the sustainable assets. And sustainable assets has two different categories, I would say. One is like physical assets, like everything else. Talk about solar panel, windmill, water plant, those kind of physical investment. Sure, have a clear business model, clear revenue model, clear investment opportunity, and also extra value is those impacts to the global society, global environment. But actually, there's another secondary, or actually, I believe it's more important category. It's coming from human efforts, like day-to-day fractional human efforts. Actually, it's very, very important to our environment, to our Earth, to the global sustainability implementation, is just because it's very fractional. Most of the time, it's invisible or like too small. Think about if you take a coffee with a paper cup
Sure.
or recycle mug, or driving an EV or fossil car, that kind of the difference.
It reminds me the Ikata hours in the 90s, probably in New York, right?
Well,
So
yeah.
where you create a unit of account to monetize the time you devote to the
Yes.
contribution to the community you live in, right?
Yeah, but think about the Web3. Web3 is the technology, along with others, IoT, AI, able to tokenize those type of the value and put in a accumulative and a collective way. Actually, the result is very, very impressive. So we are specifying this track.
Interesting.
And we just launched the new DAO ecosystem we call V-Better DAO. So it's like V better, we all better. Do better, get rewards, get rich, that type of ecosystem. So yeah, that's what we're focused on.
Interesting. I think it's the first time that I heard so much well explain how you can tokenize human capital, which has been exploited so far by the traditional capital market, but probably with the Web3, we can kind of experiment new model of,
Yeah, I think that's the most promising for the, let's say, what Web3 technology can really maximize the potential in this area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Pascal, what is your opinion? Tell us a bit more about you and what is your opinion about this technology in the real-world asset tokenization?
Hello, everyone. I'm Pankri Bansal. I am a blockchain expert with United Nations and ISO. Also an advisor to LTO Network, which is a layer 1 for RWAs. And I've been in the space since 8 years now, worked with Morgan Stanley in the ETF space, also with JP Morgan in the Onyx wing. And in terms of tokenization, I think one area where fractionalization really helps is redistribution of wealth, right? Because when we talk about the social impact of RWAs, I believe that a person sitting, let's say in Africa, wants to take a small loan, but fractionalization can really help in that. And not just that, they also have access to land, which was not possible before, because in order to own a big chunk of land or even a small chunk of land, you need money, you need capital, right? You need access to capital. But now with fractionalization, you can own a piece of that capital. So that itself is so empowering for the investors, for normal people, for anybody sitting in any remote part of the world.
You see these more happening in developing countries in particular?
Absolutely. Because anyway, the system is a little flawed. KYCs are not in place. The registration system is not in place. AML is not in place.
But so there is a kind of a possibility of leapfrog for those countries that are not blocked by the trade finance infrastructure to use this type of technologies.
Yes, to use peer-to-peer lending, to use that kind of an infrastructure where you can fractionalize and then kind of take loans or even own a piece of land. So that itself, I believe, is so empowering in terms of the technology. Of course, we have a long way to go. This is still a lot in theory and pilot stage. We need to figure out the ways around it. But at least now we know that there's a possibility, and we do know we can work around it. So
what are the countries that, based on your experience, that you think are more prone to this transformational change in these type of asset classes?
Sorry, what are the
countries, based on your experience, that are more prone to this transformational adoption of this technology?
I mean, least developing countries, emerging economies, as I said, like medium parts of Africa, even India, for example, or like Asian countries, smaller Asian, Mekong region, or even Micronesian countries, for example. We're seeing a lot of adoption and at least, a willingness to embrace these technologies over there, because obviously, as I said, the infrastructure is not in place right now. They do not have access to capital. So when they see something like this, it really entices them, but the word blockchain itself pushes them away. So, we need to have the user-friendliness in a way that makes it accessible to them. But at least we know that there's a possibility.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much to the four of you. Absolutely. The last 10 years, the wild west of scams in the crypto space didn't help much the industry adoption, right? Because every time you hear crypto is bad, blockchain is good, which is something that I don't understand, but maybe we will try to understand maybe even today. So let me go into more, the social impact of real-world asset tokenization. Let me ask you what your idea about the use of tokenization to democratize access to these new asset classes that otherwise are unavailable, how you can increase the broader participation with the fractionalization, and what are the challenges that you see ahead and the risk? I mean, you mentioned Far East Asia. Far East Asia is an amazing, opportunity there, but there are different regulators, different laws, different KYC policies. So I would like maybe you to elaborate on your experience, the challenges that you face in order to, bring these new asset classes through blockchain to mass adoption.
I can start if you want.
Please.
So we are tokenizing real estate, diamonds, art, carbon credits, all of that on Hedera, right? I think it's foolish to think that the investors, who are some of them non-sophisticated at all, will be willing to have a wallet on their phone with a 12 or 24 passphrase and be able to manage all of that. So the number one thing that we need to focus on, all of us here, is custodian services. Because those tokens are not going to sit in wallets on my phone. I will never, if I invest in a piece of real estate, I will never keep the representation of that investment only on my phone with the risk of losing this.
Yes.
Because that's bad for me. It's also really bad for the real estate asset because now they don't know how to reconcile, if they need to invest into, let's say we all invest in this beautiful building.
What is the solution here?
Custodian. So you need to have a custody service in order to provide the guarantee to the asset manager and to the investor that even if you lose your phone, you will continue to own the asset, right? And of course, that removes the friction of having a wallet, a crypto Web3 wallet on your phone that you.
So we depart somehow from the Bitcoin narrative, your keywords, your money.
We have to.
We need to, right?
We have to. There is no way that everybody on this planet is going to be comfortable with Web3. We need to offer both, but we cannot live without custodians today. I'm convinced of that. It's unfortunate because, to your point, that's against the original idea of what blockchain and crypto is. But I think if you want adoption, you have to.
But still, you can use encryption to break the key and distribute the key access to.
You can use decentralized recovery, which is one of the things that Stacy and I. There we go.
Can you talk about this a bit more, maybe?
Yeah. So decentralized recovery is a mechanism that Dr. Lehman Baird from Hedera invented to be able to still own your private key on your wallet, but share a portion of that private key with your friends, and your friends could be organizations or real people. And if you lose your phone, you buy a new phone, you enter your password, and they help you recover your private key back into your phone. They cannot do it if they get together. They have to have you as part of the process. And it's very elegant technology, and we have implemented now that technology in different wallets. So that helps with the challenge of managing your own keys. And Algorand is working with us, and Ripple now is working with us, and other projects that we cannot talk about are coming. Maybe Sunny, you will be joining soon.
I was about to ask, can we join?
Yeah, of course you can join. Of course you can.
So this is a new initiative launched by Hedera and Algorand, right?
Yeah.
So it's about a way to own your own custody of the private key, but sharing access to your partners at the same time without revealing much of the information, right?
Yeah, so you can, if you lose your key, you can recover it. That's the bottom line.
Right.
And that's good. But it's still not an experience that is going to be available to everybody who wants to participate in tokenization of everyday items.
All right, thank you. Other risks and challenges you see apart from the key management and custody of the key pair?
I think the idea that tokenizing something large into little pieces will drive financial inclusion, I think is a pretty obvious point about tokenization. But I think that the idea of fractionalization and tokenization gets conflated too often, and there is a whole world of tokenization that has nothing to do with fractionalization. And one of the very interesting use cases there, and these things tend to create markets where markets did not exist before. That's the cool thing about them.
Right.
And so one example of a company building on Algorand is called TravelX. And if you think about the relationship you have with institutions that you do business with, the one that you hate the most might be the airlines that you fly with, right? You make a trip, you want to cancel that trip, something happens, and they, charge you a $75 fee. They tell you you can only go back where you were going to go, and you have 1 year to do it in, and all this stuff. And if you don't make your ticket 2 weeks in advance, you're going to get penalized. I mean, it's just a terrible relationship.
I went through it a couple of times.
Yeah,
Nightmare.
exactly. So, but the guys from TravelX, they looked around, they're like, there are all these people with tickets that might want to sell those tickets. That's called the secondary market. So why can't we tokenize those tickets that you've bought, make it a friendly relationship with the airline? So they did this. They're an Argentinian company. They started with an Argentinian national airline called Flybondi. If you decide, you're a college student, you buy a ticket home for Thanksgiving all 4 years to save money, but then your sophomore year you get a boyfriend, you don't want to go home. You want to go see your boyfriend. You can put this ticket up on the marketplace and say you're a frequent flyer with a ton of points. You can transfer with that ticket your lounge access pass, for example. All the perks that go to you can go with this token. And this is not possible in a Web 2 world, right? They do it in partnership with the airline. If you go to the Flybondi website, you see this marketplace, all kinds of tickets for sale. It doesn't say, TravelX anywhere on it. It doesn't say Algorand. It doesn't say blockchain anywhere on that thing. These people just think, and the airline, of course, takes a little piece every time these things travel back and forth. That's kind of version 1.0. But the reason that because you could say, well, why can't Flybondi have their own database and do this, right? I mean, that's a legitimate question. But where the Web 3 piece comes in is, why can't that go from airline to airline?
Exactly.
Why do you have to stay on that particular airline? Why can't you sell that ticket somewhere else? That is the promise of Web 3, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. And I hate the fact that you travel around the world and you have different air miles and you cannot exchange from one another. They're not exchangeable. They're in silos.
It's silos. Yeah, we're silo busting in Web 3.
So I think this is a great
and the airline is so happy, too, because it's not a confrontational relationship. They want to improve the relationship with their customers, and this gives them a way to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And by the way, they want you to redeem your points, because until you do, that's a liability on their balance sheet. So they want you to use the points.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is a great case. Great case. Sunny Liu, what do you think about how we can use this tokenization to democratize and the risk that you see ahead?
Yeah, that's actually a brilliant question. When we think about the social impacts or tokenized social impacts, or giving the fair access to everyone, let's say there are multiple different aspects we can talk about. First, by design, blockchain is free access. It's public, it's transparent, give everyone's opportunity to use the application, to invest, or even tokenize your things by yourself. So that's like by nature, blockchain is made to do that type of things, and definitely should go that way. And second layer,
but the UX experience sometimes is not.
That's a challenge. That's a challenge. UX, and also Stacy and Eric mentioned about the custodian, which is the greatest challenge to, let's say, especially non-crypto users, right? It's like, I only say I don't really worry about that. By time, it will be resolved. Think about early days when you think about the internet. You don't need to know TCP IP or SMTP, but now everyone is using e-commerce, emails, website, like mobile apps every day, right? So I don't really worry about that. But think about the social impacts. I think the second layer is how people can make a decision or get part of the decision process. So what we are exploring now, we build up the new ecosystem. It's called VeChain, like I just introduced. Actually, every week have a new batch of token to be released, and released to the entire networks, right? And every week, the allocation scheme is decided by the voting results. And also the voting, we implement the quadratic voting mechanism,
Right.
try to balance the holding and also number of people to vote. So basically, for people, you can just vote for like what kind of application you like, or what kind of application give you the most benefits, or high level, what kind of application generate the most impacts to the society, to the environment. And last but not least, very interestingly, I think most people, let's say, overlooked or ignored sometimes the fractional effort to the sustainability impacts or the social impacts. Like I made example, most people underestimate, like, okay, you take a cup of coffee in a paper cup or recycled mug, what's the difference? Yeah, we waste some paper, that's it, right? But think about the accumulative value. Every year, 16 billion, not million, billion paper cups has been used by people and wasted every year. And those cups, paper cups, coming from 6.5 million trees.
Wow.
So let's say if everyone, every user set up the personal goal, I go to the coffee shop 7 days a week, and I put the target like, okay, half of my time, use a recycled mug and don't use paper cup. Like even try to sacrifice my convenience. And if everyone do that, we're able to save more than 3 million trees every year. That's a huge value, right?
Absolutely.
That's a huge social impacts coming from individual effort, coming from daily basis. So I think the Web3 and blockchain is just able to make that type of actions recorded and incentivized, and eventually create the collective value, monetize that type of the assets. It's a huge supplementary input to the social impacts,
Absolutely.
I would say. So from the application level, also, when you talk about the democratized tokenization, it's a way to enable every individual to access, not only access, but also make a decision, part of the decisions, and be part of the game. Make your own contribution and eventually achieve the result as a humankind as a whole, eventually make the world a better place.
So we become prosumers, consumers and producers at the same time, opening up the door to the open source community, using blockchain to enable a circular economy through the recycle and tracing of this raw material, right?
This is actually a pretty contentious point, though, because there's a body of belief that disputes that says that if you start monetizing, paying people to do things that they ordinarily get a good charitable feeling from doing, then you take away that charitable impulse. So they did a study, for example, on giving blood, and they thought they wanted to get the numbers up for giving blood, and so they started paying people for giving blood, and the numbers went down because people feel good about giving blood, and when you started to pay them, they started feeling very commercial and transactional about it. So I'd be curious to see how that plays out on chain for you guys, because it's not obvious.
I think what's interesting is because what you talk about is tokenizing behavior, right? So you can say the token is not a financial token to avoid that issue, but you can use the token to do something else, to have another experience, for example, right?
You can even add like carbon credits to it, right? You can tokenize them and add carbon credits. So that way you are incentivizing normal people like you and me to exchange them, and that itself acts as an incentive. So refi is one area which kind of helps in, and again, financial inclusion through tokenization. And to add to Eric's point about custodial, I think so at LTO, we are developing a layer 1 network where we have something known as ownables. So what happens with that, it's a hybrid blockchain. So you have a private layer as well as a public layer. Now what the problem is with most of these networks is either private or public. So the data is either completely privately retained or it's public, right? So there's no balance. But if you have a hybrid layer to it, what happens is that the user can kind of own like the essentials or the GDPR regulated information to themselves, while the hybrid part or the public part will be where the information which needs to be out there in the public for verification and credentials, it's out there. So this is one area where
Absolutely.
you can certainly have help in developing the infrastructure at large. And in terms of impact, I think technicality-wise, I think Oracle reading is one area where we need to really consider if we are to scale, the implications of tokenization and fractionalization, because in the end, if we are to have insurance contracts or smart contracts for accessibility to, digital or real-world assets, the hindrance right now is things like Oracle's reading data, correctly from the right sources, making sure the smart contract vulnerabilities are kind of, not out there or there, then minimized.
Yep.
So even at UN, what we are trying to do is we are creating blockchain standards for encryption standards, for example, so that all different stakeholders or all parties involved in the transaction can kind of come together, use those standards, and make it more interoperable, and that way it will
Very
help
good.
with the scalability. So we're really trying to work on these standards, and we personally believe that standards are the right way to make this technology more efficient and more accessible to the people out there.
Absolutely. I mean, I see many people working in this field, and sometimes I see a lot of fractionalization also of the efforts, so to say, because you talk about standards. There are the ISO standards that are working on standards as well. So the regulators are local. Blockchain is global. The community is global. Asset class is global. So sometimes it's very difficult to reconcile all these different views and opinions and stuff. So let me wrap up with 2 minutes each about what you think about the future of tokenization. What do you think about this can bring to the to the global economy? If you have some vision and some suggestion for us, some area we should look at that you think are overlooked so far.
I'm always going to answer a question like that in terms of creating markets that don't exist now. That's what I think is the real promise. So another slightly hypothetical example is you're a donor, you care very much about solving for cataracts. Eric's a very important, accomplished cataract surgeon in Ethiopia. Eric is not willing to do surgery up front because he's not sure he's going to get paid because he doesn't trust donors. Donors are not willing to give money because they think the hospital will take it and won't get to Eric. A smart contract that can hold those funds, where Eric can upload a picture of a guy with cloudy eyes and a picture of a guy with clear eyes. That token goes to the donor. The money releases automatically. That is economic activity that did not occur before that can now take place because of smart contracts and tokenization on a publicly verifiable database that we call a blockchain. That's the stuff that I think is super interesting and that is going to kind of lead the Pareto improvement going forward for the welfare improvement economically, globally.
Thank you.
I would actually double down on this and say the first success stories we're going to see in tokenizations are going to be new markets, because you don't displace anyone else when you create a new market, as opposed to trying to displace the real estate industry and tokenize half of the country, right? That's going to be a long journey. But if you find those examples that Stacy mentioned, you have a better chance of success. And then the rest of the industries are going to say, oh, look what they did over there. We should do the same thing for our own asset classes.
So looking to new markets that do not exist at the moment.
Yeah, it's the leapfrog effect, right? So people are going to leapfrog the legacy structure of financial services to build a new market, and then the historical industry are going to say, "Oh, hold on, we are late.
Right.
We should catch up."
So no incremental innovation of the existing industry, but disruptive innovation, looking for new areas where this technology can apply.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, we're going to see a lot of assets which we cannot even possibly think of being fractionalized. So new markets, but also new asset classes which will be coming on chain. In fact, something like a physical gold itself, right now, I recently read that there is a lack of physical gold which can be mined because of the demand that we have in the global economy right now, all thanks to the economic turmoil we all are in right now. So there's obviously increased demand for gold, and tokenizing the ownership of gold itself can come on the blockchain, and there are pilots going on at this level. So I think even the very traditional asset classes, which we thought, oh, it's better to have gold saved in your vault or in your locker at home, you can even now tokenize that and use that as a digital representation. So I think we will see a lot of new asset classes which will be coming on board, and that itself is going to be very game-changing in that regard, I believe.
Thank you. And you, Sonny?
Yeah, well, it's a huge.
Go.
Yes. I think for sure it's a huge potential, and I totally agree with Stacy and Eric and Pankri. It's definitely goes to new market. The technology, tokenization, that's a new thing, gonna support the new market. But also it could be varied based on either geographically new location. We're talking about the developing country, right? So unfortunately, they haven't, let's say, have enough infrastructure or technology support in the past to bring to the current level as a developed country. So if they wanted to, catch up, they definitely not going to go through still the old infrastructure, but try to get benefits from the new technologies. Think about the payment method. China used to, let's say, not so developed, and nobody, very few people using the credit card, that kind of system. But then when internet starts, everyone using Alipay, WeChat Pay, that kind of internet payment. So also kind of leaves them a little bit behind about the crypto payment, I would say, because they are already in the new level, right? So I think for the rest of the world, we'll catch up with a new crypto payment. So that's exactly the case for tokenization as well. So definitely a new market. The other aspect is about the new categories or new industries. And you were saying 10% of global GDP going to be tokenized. I totally agree with that. Actually, I think even more than that. There is another data coming from Boston Consulting Group is by 2030, the global sustainability GDP or economy going to reach $26 trillion per year. So where are those coming from? If we want to build up the new economy as big as $26 trillion a year, then tokenization must play something about it. And it's exactly honestly, it's kind of like a desert right now. Even you think about the carbon credits, right? It's quite a varies. I did the research by myself from a global carbon credits from, based on the different country, from 7 cents to $190, that kind of range. So there must be some opportunity to using the tokenization, using the blockchain platform, or even new exchange to build that kind of new economy.
Thank you.
I do think an upfront opportunity that if I was to sort of bet on a horse right now for the 2024-2025 timeframe, I would definitely bet on financial services, because most of it is already digital, and finance is highly incented to save money and to wring money out where they can. The problem a little bit is that they're all kind of in lockstep. You can't move to a blockchain yourself unless all of your counterparties are also kind of on the way to moving in the same way. But if you think, again, to kind of bring it full circle to the securitization vehicle, you pay, for example, on your waterfall, a calculation agent. A calculation agent, I mean, that's just a bunch of spreadsheets, right? And why are you paying, 5 or 6 basis points to those guys when that can be very explicitly determined on a blockchain? And if I think about my bosses at JP Morgan, I know how they think, and I know they are looking everywhere to find where they can wring those 5 and 10 basis points out of financial transactions. And the thing about blockchain, let's not forget, clearing equals settlement. Right? So in a blockchain world, you don't need SWIFT. You don't need all those messages going back. And we congratulated ourselves from going in 2015 from T+3 to T+2. It took 2 years to do that. And on Algorand, it's instantaneous settlement. Right? And so this is a new world, and I think finance is going to, even though they complain about crypto, they're going to get on board very quickly.
They don't have the choice. I think and we just moved to T+1 in the US, right? 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And I think to me that's interesting, that the pressure of the innovation on the financial system forces them to actually get better, even if they don't use crypto and blockchain yet. But to get to the last stage, they're going to have to. They're going to have to engage with it.
I think we're going to see a lot of struggle for currency supremacy in the years to come, where you have a lot of private initiatives or public initiatives, stable coins. The market is heating up, it's growing double digits every year. The market size is huge, $1 trillion. Tokenization, but on the other side, you also have CBDC. So the regulators are going there to watch, or are they going to jump in and take a share of this market?
I can't wait for wine to be tokenized. We are in France, right? We need to tokenize wine.
Absolutely.
And so I can invest in wine, finally, right?
Yeah, but I think cross-jurisdiction regulations that we have is a major hindrance right now, right? Because if we are to tokenize, that means we make it borderless. Anyone can own it from any part of the world, any part of the asset, any part of the world. But there are different jurisdictions which are registered for these properties, these assets. So the regulators need to have very transparent systems in place so these jurisdictions can kind of talk to each other and have a more transparent system to make tokenization, fractionalization actually be achieved at that level that we are talking about today. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's not going to be as easy because when regulators come into play, they need to come together. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Absolutely. So just in time, like a Swiss watch. Thank you very much to my panelists. It was great having you here in the stage. And thank you for having addressed these important topics. I hope you enjoy. See you at the coffee break. If you have questions, you will find the panelists there. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, let's do a selfie before we...
That's okay. I really enjoyed what I could hear back there. You did fantastic as usual. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Yes, wonderful conversation. Wow, that was such a way to kick off the morning. I know there's just a few of you left here. You all want to go get lunch, maybe grab a coffee, wake up, get the blood circulating a little bit, because we've got really in-depth conversations as well when we get back. More powerhouse speakers. After the lunch break, we'll be hearing about incentivizing innovation. So now we've heard about all the golden, amazing innovation that's happening in this space, but how do we get people to care? How do we get people to build? How do we get users to want to interact? How do we make this sticky? So we'll be hearing from Yatsu and a lot of other big speakers after the lunch break on that topic. So do please come back here, and please enjoy. We have lunch on the second and third floors. For those of you who are American, it would be, yeah, second and third. European, first and second. So up one level, and the level after that, we're having the lunch also in the VIP room. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to be the host of the stage with you this morning, and I'll see you at the end of the day. So enjoy the lunch.